Hello, legacy builders, and welcome back to another episode of Legacy Pregame Podcast. I am Marcella Mollon-Williams, behavioral financial advisor, mindset coach, and legacy strategist for first generation legacy wealth builders. And I am truly excited for the conversation that we're about to enter into today with Elsa W. Smith. She is a friend and an amazing estate planning attorney, but let me go ahead and just tell you all that I can about her in this short period of time. And trust me, there's so much more to her than what I'm about to read. So, Elsa W. Smith is the founder and managing member of the law offices of Elsa W. Smith, LLC, a top rated estate planning firm serving Maryland and the District of Columbia. With over 25 years of legal experience, Elsa is a trusted advisor to individuals, families, and business owners seeking clarity, protection, and peace of mind through wills, trusts, and business succession planning. Repeatedly recognized as a super lawyer's top rated estate planning attorney in Maryland, Elsa brings both legal expertise and cultural insight to her work. As a native US born Spanish speaker of Afro-Cuban descent and a small business owner herself, Elsa understands the unique challenges faced by first generation wealth builders, particularly women and communities of color. And as a sought after speaker, educator, and media contributor, she has appeared on radio, television, and in print. Through her YouTube channel and her popular podcast, Wills, Women, and Wealth, with attorney Elsa W. Smith, which I've had the pleasure of being on, she empowers audiences with complimentary, high impact legal education. That she definitely does. And Elsa's mission is simple yet powerful to empower women through estate planning. Please join me in welcoming Elsa W. Smith. Welcome, Elsa.
Thank you, Marcella. It is such a joy to be on your platform. And let me start off by saying thank you for being gracious enough to share your platform with me. It's really an honor. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And really, the honor is all mine. I have been looking forward to this conversation. You know, we chat, we have so much in common. And I want to just allow our listeners to really be exposed to this vast knowledge that you have, in particular in this area that impacts them so much and has a potential of transforming their lives. So I always want people to just get to know you, who you are, your journey. I want you to share a little about where you came from. You know, you mentioned Afro-Cuban roots and being raised with traditional immigrant working family. And so I want to know, really, tell me what led you to this place of estate planning. What brought you here in the career that you are in today?
Thank you, Marcella. I am proudly of Afro-Cuban descent. As you mentioned, I was raised in a traditional immigrant household where hard work, faith, and family and sacrifice were deeply ingrained. We valued, education and family, but we didn't talk about things like estate planning, wealth preservation, or how to intentionally pass things on to the next generation. I still remember the first time I created my own estate plan. And it was when I got married a little over 17 years ago. No, I didn't come out of the womb with an estate plan. I remember, right? I remember sitting there, signing the documents and thinking, wow, so this is what it feels like to be a grown up, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't just about paperwork. It was about stepping into my power and
Mhm.
responsibility in a whole new way. Years later, as I continued to, grow my legal practice, I realized that I wanted to recreate that feeling I had in other women,
Mhm.
especially for women of color who are so often we're left out of these estate planning conversations. We're rarely seen in marketing and print. And my own background, being the daughter of immigrants, navigating cultural expectations, and I know we're going to get into that later on in this
Definitely.
podcast, and understanding
Mhm.
the pressures of being a first gen wealth builder. It helps me serve my clients with empathy and with clarity. Estate planning to me, it's not just about protecting assets. It's about helping women, men too, but especially women, feel strong, feel seen, and feel secure in every stage of their life.
That's beautiful. And I love, you had your adulting moment, as they say. And I'm sure you felt that sense of responsibility. And I don't know, I feel like when people go through that process, there's this sense of pride that comes with like, wow, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And now you're able to relate and take that and relate to your clients and provide them with so much more. So what I'd like to know is, because I know that you are a wonderful estate planner and you're unique with what you do. So I want our listeners to hear, and I want you to explain what makes your approach to estate planning different and how that process that you take your clients through, because I love it, how it transforms them. Let our listeners hear about Elsa and how amazing you are.
Well, thank you so much. Our approach, we do believe that we are unique, we are different than many estate planning firms out there. My firm is built on the idea that, as I said before, estate planning is much more than paperwork. It's personal, it's emotional, and deeply empowering. We don't just ask, what do you own? We ask, who do you want to protect? What legacy do you want to leave behind? And what makes our approach different is that we center women, especially women of color. We educate, we empower, we create a safe space for culture, history, and healing to be a part of the process. Clients often, I really remember my very first estate planning client, physician, and she, to paraphrase her, she said she felt lighter, after the process. That's what
Yes.
transformational estate planning looks like. It's
Mm,
not just about death and gloom, it's about living on your own terms and leaving something meaningful behind. Now, we want to
yes.
talk about like the nuts and bolts of my practice. We're based in Maryland, but as you said in the bio, we serve residents of the District of Columbia as well as Maryland. We are primarily, but not exclusively, a virtual firm. We embrace technology. If it's one thing that the pandemic showed us all, is that there is a different way, and a lot of times a more efficient, a better way of communicating with your audience, with clients. So we've embraced that into our processes and procedures. Really, you are able to communicate with our team, with me during consultations, and then once you become a client, virtually in the comfort of your living room. And the only time that you need to come into our offices is for the signing of the documents themselves. So we've made it very convenient. And for those who, I just want to throw this in there, for
Yeah.
some of our more seasoned clients who may or may not be very comfortable with technology, we have a team member who, her job is to specifically to white glove, as I say, our
Yes.
clients. All of them get the same level of care, but for those that just need a little extra support, we are there for that, right? Because we don't want that to be a hurdle to getting you to, a better you, a more
Yes.
empowered you, right? We're not going to
Yes.
allow that to happen. So
Absolutely.
that's a bit of insight into my practice and what makes us different.
And I love that because you take the care and concern that a lot of your clients experience very seriously. You are taking the effort to create an experience. And I'm all about the experience. It's so important because that is what people want to experience. I define, and you've heard me say this, I define legacy as how others will experience your existence. And
Yes.
so you are helping people to live and to leave, so live it out and leave a legacy so that people will experience their existence later on after they're gone. But at the same time, you are allowing them to experience your legacy through the work that you do. And you are creating an experience for them. And the key word there that you said, it was a hurdle, because this field that you're in, even in what I do, and this is the thing that we can talk about all the time, is that there is this emotional barrier of entry, and there's a challenge. And I remember we were talking once, and you mentioned about how a client will start with you, they'll hire you, and they're just a ghost. They won't even show up. You will not see them again. And that's because it is a very emotional process. I've had the same experience. And as first generation wealth builders, that can show up in different ways. So knowing that this process is can be emotional, it feels emotionally overwhelming. How do you, as a legacy expert, help them to push through this discomfort and stay engaged through this process? Because I think they need to hear that.
Absolutely. And in show prep, we had such a rich conversation, as you and I normally do. And we touched on this point that I've seen in my experience that there's that people, it takes so much energy, so much intention
Mm.
to pick up the phone or make that initial call into, the estate planning attorney's office, and then get on the books, get scheduled, right? And then and maybe even have that first assessment call, and maybe even have that consultation. It takes so much energy because for so long you've talked about it. You knew that it was something that you had to do, so that when you finally get to check it off, there's just exhale, and you're like, oh, and then there's this drain of energy. But no, you have to maintain that momentum, right? Because
Yes.
once you become the client, you know, I can't create your estate plan without you. That's what I need people to understand. I can't create your estate plan without you. So I need you to be engaged. My job as the estate planning professional is to explain the legalese, provide options, to make sure that you make an informed decision, to provide comfort, because we're not just legal professionals. We also wear that other hat. I mean, for those of us who really lean into the care and the service aspect of our estate planning practices, you need to be sensitive. You need to be a human being, because there are human beings that you are caring for in creating their plan, and that is a tremendous responsibility. So you, as an estate planner, and I'm saying this to you, but it's like I'm speaking to, ministering to myself. I have a responsibility to make sure that my clients have a safe space in which to share their goals, their aspirations, family drama, family dynamics, in a place where there is no judgment.
Mm.
And I need your
Beautiful.
viewers to understand that your estate planning attorney, that professional, to really be operating at like plus 100%, is making sure that you are cared for. Because let's be honest, you are coming to us much like you would to a medical professional or a financial professional like yourself. You have to know everything. We need to know the full picture. I need to know what are those, landmines, if you will, that we need to plan, take into consideration or work around, right? To
Yeah.
get you to the stage of transformation and, being that empowered person, on the other side.
Absolutely.
Because I am truly committed to that. You should not feel overwhelmed. We do not make, in this office, we do not make decisions out of guilt, obligation, or fear. Those have no place
Yes.
in this estate planning process. It's too important. So, yeah,
No,
and and it's so I just
I
obviously you can
get it.
see how impassioned
And
I get about this. You
that's why
knew this was going to happen.
exactly that's why you're here. You are, because I am here for that passion. I love it, and we both feel the same way. It is we're here to support, and yes, you have the title of attorney, but it's so much more. You're a coach, you're a supporter. You're taking them through this extremely vulnerable journey, and that's the thing. When I have that first meeting with a client, often, I think most times, is depending on the conversation, I literally physically have them pat themselves on the back in our call because I want to celebrate the fact that they showed up for themselves. They showed up for themselves because I think the stats will say that most Americans do not have this type of planning in place. The statistics show that.
Yes.
So when someone does show up at your office, to get their estate planning done, that's huge. And we celebrate that. And as you can hear from as you express, Elsa, you take it very seriously, and the level of support that you want to provide and that you do provide is a beautiful thing. I often really look at it as, like you mentioned, going to a medical professional. It reminds me of a visit to the gynecologist, and yeah, it can be very intimate and very challenging, and you just have to take it off and allow the professional that you trust to know that they're going to make sure that you're okay. That's what we're
Yeah.
here to do. And it really does feel like that level of emotion the very first time you go to see a doctor, new relationship with your doctor. It's uncomfortable,
And there's
but
that
it's important.
vulnerability. There's that
Yes.
vulnerability.
Exactly. It's the same level. I mean, wouldn't you agree, Elsa, that it's the
Absolutely.
same level, that feeling, and that's the thing. Our bodies don't know the difference. They really don't know,
Mm,
doesn't understand the difference between seeing an estate plan, sitting down with an estate planning attorney and sitting at the table on that bench at the doctor's office.
yes.
It does not know the difference. Your body simply responds
Right.
to what the stimulus is. And if that stimulus is fear, insecurity, whatever's wrapped around there, then you're going to feel what you feel. And that's why I say it's often the same feeling. That feeling keeps people from going to their annual checkup and their doc and doing what they need to do medically. It's the same feeling that will keep you from speaking with your estate planning attorney, your financial advisor, or even visiting one. That is the same thing. And that's what I want people to pay attention to and be careful not to overlook, because that's the first thing. That's the first barrier of entry. It's here, it's us. And it starts right there.
Oh my
So,
goodness, yes. Yeah, it's that in our minds, our mindset. I mean, mindset is we could do a whole other episode on the mindset, right? And I know that you talk about mindset a lot, in your speaking engagements and stuff over the
yeah.
years. But that's really where it starts. And that's really what affects us all, professionals, non. It's that I think in part it's that fear of being judged,
Yes.
because when you come to, a financial professional's office, when you come to the estate, you meet with an estate planning attorney, typically there's some sort of questionnaire and they're asking about your assets, what you have in savings, what you have, and then everything is out in the open. So it's that fear that we all have of being judged. What is this attorney going to think of me? And
Yes. Yes. That's
it's I just want
huge.
to put that unmask that fear and put
Yes.
it out there, because we a lot of times we talk around it, but that's really it. You're afraid of what me, the
Yes.
professional, is going to think about you. You're doing this to yourself even before
Exactly.
you meet me. And I have hundreds of videos letting you get to know me, how I am, how, the cultural sensitivity and everything. But even still, people will have that embedded, that fear is like, oh,
Yes. And the
Maybe
cultural pressure is very strong.
it is.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole with you,
Yeah.
Elsa, because we'll go down this
We
mindset.
good. And I just want to I know you had asked about and forgive me if I didn't fully dive into it, the pressures that first gen wealth builder pressure, if I could
We're going to
speak
get
to
into
that.
that.
Oh, we are.
Don't
Okay,
worry.
great.
Oh no! As
Great.
a matter of fact, let's go ahead and jump right there because do that. Because like you said, we can stick on mindset and really that is what we're covering here. So I
Yeah,
want to make sure listeners really pay attention to what we're talking about because
absolutely.
there's only so much we can do to support you
Right.
unless you are mentally ready for this journey for us.
Right.
When you are mentally ready for this journey, oh, we can really help you build your legacy. But right now, we're talking about developing the behavior that
Right.
will build your legacy. And so, Elsa, let's talk about the cultural pressures that many first gen wealth builders face. There are expectations. So, listeners, just think about that. Just think about the expectations that are around your culture, that are embedded within your culture. And some of these expectations are about supporting extended families. Some of these things are about secrecy. There's this, and I came across this a few times, especially when I deal with Caribbean families. They don't want to share information. There's this veil of secrecy. We don't talk about this. And you have to talk about it, right? So there's all this pressure that a first gen has. So let's talk about it. How do you see this dynamic show up in estate planning and what you do and the clients that you work with? And how can we start to break this cycle?
Before I answer that, I want to share because you and I are both, I say cut from the same cloth. We both are very intellectual in our approach to what we do, and we like statistics. So I wanted to share one with you that I think you'd appreciate. So this was from a 20. It's old, but it's not too old. 2013 Merrill Lynch Age Wave study. And the study is called Family and Retirement, the Elephant in the Room. And that
Mm,
study showed that 62% of Americans age 50 or over reported providing financial support to adult children, to grandchildren, parents, or siblings over the prior 5 years, right? Even though the vast majority of them, like 88 to 91%, according to this study, had not planned or budgeted for it in their retirement planning. So I thought that that was a stat that you would certainly appreciate.
absolutely. That is a that's a reality check for a lot of people. I see it all the time. I know you see it. So great. I'm so glad you shared that.
Thank you.
So
And
glad you shared.
this issue is, it goes to the very heart of what I do. First gen professionals like myself, we feel obligated to take care of everyone.
Hmm.
Parents, siblings, as you said, extended family, and it comes often at the expense of their own stability. Now, that's
Yes.
something that people don't like to say out loud, because you might not get invited over for Christmas dinner if you put that out there, that you're ungrateful and, we've done all this for you and you should give back. Certainly, and I just want to say this to everyone listening. I am not advocating not supporting family and your friends when you are able to and feel led to. But here's that other component: at the expense of your own retirement, at the expense of your own stability. That's where I respectfully say that you need to think about the decisions that you're going to make. In estate planning conversations that I have, it shows up as this like hesitation. I want to plan,
Mhm.
but what if my family sees it as selfish? Or a
Mhm.
simple question of, how do I say no without guilt?
Whew. Those
When
are
somebody's asking you, they see that you've got this great job, or you launched this new business, and it appears to be doing well. You've experienced success, and others in your family may not be where you are. So they kind of see you or see others in your family that have achieved that level of success as kind of like a piggy bank almost that
Yeah.
they can like go to. Um, and that's the problem. The truth is that
It is a problem.
the planning isn't selfish, it's strategic, right? It's how you create sustainability, not just survival.
Mm-hmm.
When we shift from constant giving to long-term thinking, everyone benefits. If there is a way to provide for those that you care for, if you're thinking long term, if you know that they are going to have needs and for whatever reason they can't provide for themselves, and you feel led to lend a hand, to support, to give back, there are strategic ways, there are structured ways so that they're not like a million one offs.
Yes.
And at the same time, you can continue to build your nest egg, because at some point you are going to retire or choose something different other than what you're doing. And you want to have some money set aside to do
Yeah.
that. A lot of times we just put ourselves on the altar and just sacrifice ourselves and go, well, I've done well, so I'm just going to lay it all that. It doesn't have to be
Yes.
that way. But
Yeah.
mentally, because our mind, going back to the mindset again, our mind plays tricks on us. It's these little voices that say, well, you wouldn't be here if it were not for.
Oh, but
Okay?
and
Are
those
we are we gonna
voices,
are we gonna be real now? You would not be here if it weren't for
of
this
course,
person, that person, that person. So when you get to that point, you're like, wow, but I'm just starting to get some momentum. I'm just starting. I got this great
yes,
job. Probably, if you're in your 20s, your first job, they just started talking to you about retirement and a 401k, and you just started putting money away, and then a request comes in from a family member saying, I need this. And I know you're earning X at your job. So why can't you support? Why can't you give back? So then that's that
yes,
internal tug of war of, well, this was the year that I was actually going to increase my pre-tax contributions to my 401k by just a couple percent, but I guess I got to put that off now because this has come up. And I know you see that in your practice.
I do, and especially working with first gen wealth builders, that
Mhm.
internal tug of war is constant. If it wasn't for, as you mentioned, that's who we're talking to, and that's why I'm so glad you're bringing up these points because I want it heard loud and clear. These are the conversations that aren't really being had anywhere else. And this conversation that we're having now was the reason why Mark and I created this platform.
Mhm.
Let's get into the things that are holding you back from the life that you're desiring. And unfortunately, this is one of those things. And as you know, I go through a process with our clients, and Mark and I require that our clients do a values assessment when working with us so that we can identify their core values and work that into their financial plan. And so when I come across someone who has as a core value family, relationships, friends, community, anything like that, I always start with, all right, now let's talk about boundaries, setting up healthy boundaries. Because if family, and for many people, especially immigrants or children of immigrants, families tends to be pretty important. But for many people, family and relationships are important. And knowing how to say, not right now, that's what I have to teach some people. It's not necessarily no. Maybe it's not right now, not this time, not. There's conversations. The challenge is having the hard conversations, making the unpopular decisions, right? And then that allows you to set boundaries that would help train behavior. So what we're saying is not easy. We know that. This isn't black and white. Oh, just do this. You'll be fine. It is challenging. You don't know how other family members will respond to your boundaries. But the point is, it is yours to make. It is your decision to make. It is your money that you are responsible to steward. So what we're providing is really just the things that you have to think about, the things that are so important. As I mentioned, the challenging, the hard conversation, and the hard talks that we have to admit we avoid. We avoid with our family, right? Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wholeheartedly. We avoid what we fear. And that
Yes.
applies to anything because our brains are wired to avoid anything that is going to stretch us, anything that is going to lead us toward a situation that may involve confrontation or conflict. That's just how we're wired, a
Mhm.
default. So we've got to find some way to override that
Yes.
that setting.
Yeah. Over. So, with that said, I always feel one of the things that will help us override the setting is understanding some of the consequences. As far as we need to know, some people want to know, okay, what do I get out of it? Others, like me, what can I avoid? Like what do I don't want to experience certain things. And so, as an estate planning attorney, I'm sure you've dealt with probate court.
Mhm.
You've seen some unfortunate family drama. Is there, obviously without naming any names, can you share what you've witnessed that we could avoid, that these listeners could be sure to keep in top of mind so they can avoid with proper estate planning?
Yes, and I in preparing for this episode, it brought to mind, and of course, an instance, a prior client. I had a case where the parent thankfully did have a will in place, so we avoided some of the major headaches that come with dying intestate. And that word for your
Mhm.
listeners means dying without a will. But even with a solid plan, family dynamics still
Mm,
found their way in. The eldest child in this scenario was named as the personal representative. Some of your viewers and listeners may also know that as an executor. In Maryland, we call that a personal representative. And everything was going smoothly on paper. But a younger sibling who had a long history of conflict with the rest of the family really made the process difficult. There was a lot of emotional baggage, jealousy, and passive resistance that dragged out the probate process, the estate administration. The will, fortunately, included what's called as a no contest clause, which means that if anyone tried to challenge the will in court, they risk losing their inheritance. So that provision worked. It kept things from escalating into a full blown legal battle, but
mm,
it didn't stop the drama. The sibling didn't contest the will. That troublesome sibling didn't contest the will, but they made the personal representative's life miserable during the process.
mm,
So, while estate planning won't magically heal fractured relationships, it can provide structure and the
mhm,
legal guardrails that limit the damage. So, in this case, the will did what it was supposed to do. It
mhm.
protected the estate from litigation and honored the client's wishes. So, what's the mistake to avoid? Thinking that a plan alone will keep the peace. You have to combine clear legal documents, which is what I advocate. You have to combine that with honest communication, and sometimes even a neutral third party. Sometimes an attorney, someone else, a neutral third party can help manage expectations. Planning is powerful, but let's face it, people are going to be people.
Uh,
That's what I want people to understand. Um,
that's
we
so good.
we as in estate planning, it does quite a bit. It provides guardrails, it provides structure. It's a blueprint for people to follow, because if there is a plan, people will have confidence in taking that next step. If you were the glue that held your family together and you are no longer here, what is going to remain, so that if you have children, that the wishes are known, who the guardian will be, who your chosen guardian, who is that person who's who you trust to emulate the values that you have instilled in your children. Who is that person? Who is the person that's going to take care in the immediate term of, your funeral details? Who is going to honor, if you wish to have a memorial service? Who is that person? Is that process documented? Or will there be the chaos, the GoFundMe campaigns, and the just the pure craziness of putting things together at last minute because no one really knew your intention, because you did not show intention in putting those wishes on paper. So that if nothing else, what did I say? People are going to be people. But if there is a document that says, this is how I want to be remembered, this is how I want my children, my nieces, my nephews, this is how I want my family cared for when I am no longer here, that quells a lot of that. Well, I think she would have wanted X, or the way I think it should be done is no. That document or those sets of documents trump whatever it is that third parties who think they have a better way or know a better way of doing things will step in and say, because trust me, it will happen. I have seen it
Well,
over and over again at funerals. You and I both know this. I mean, when there is no plan, you've got people arguing about who's going to be on the funeral program, who gets to speak and who doesn't. Come on, let's keep it real. For your listeners, you all know what I'm talking about, and I should see a lot of head nods out there if I could see all of you right now. Who's going to be on program? Who's going to speak? Who's going to cater this? Who's going to pay for that? Who's going to pay for the funeral? And on that point, on average, and it's probably gone up since I've looked at these stats, just for a middle of the road funeral, you're looking at 15 to 20 grand. And funeral homes, let me tell you, they don't do, and I'm going to date myself saying it, they don't do layaway. They don't do payment plans. You need to have that payment, however it is, whether it's a credit card, life insurance, whatever the case may be, that needs to be ready, right? But there needs to be intention. You don't just throw caution to the wind and say, well, my family will figure it out. If you do that, sadly, that's just the things that can really destroy a family.
yeah. That
And you don't want that to be your legacy.
Absolutely not. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you shared all that you shared, because that is what like you said, the head nods. I know that they can relate. They've been through it either themselves, or they know of someone that has gone through that situation. And yes, it can be avoided. As many people may know who've been following Mark and I, we lost our mother last year. And so we went through that process. And to this day, I am so grateful. I'm so grateful that Mark and I do what we do. So we had the knowledge to not just about the planning, but the communication, the family unity that's needed to avoid all that drama. And it was just a peaceful, seamless experience. From the medical situation, my dad having a power of attorney and having all the documents needed to get that done seamlessly, to her passing, through the funeral process. It was unified. And one of the things, just touching on what you said, why it's important, yes, those documents are absolutely needed. And as you just said, in addition to that, the communication. And one of the programs that Mark and I have, we work with clients and conducting quarterly family meetings, where we're facilitating family meetings to start the communication around the finances and the family legacy and all that's involved, not just the financial assets, but the intellectual assets that are to be passed down, and living whatever the issues are, to live in unity so there won't be any drama later. And that's really what we're talking about here. We want our listeners to understand that it's compounding. It's more than just one thing. It's a behavior. There's steps, there's levels to this that you may not have thought of. And that's what this episode is all about, right? Elsa, we're bringing awareness, we're bringing practical strategies, and we're going to bring a lot more in future conversations, because this won't be it. We're just touching the surface. the entry point here. So, Elsa, let's talk about, you know, we discussed that point of entry. And one of the things that I've noticed with our clients as we recommend estate planning, as we refer people to you, is the right time, the right time to start an estate plans, to start estate planning. And for many people, they think it's usually when they're older, usually when they're older or wealthier. That's when I'm supposed to, I guess, that's the time to do it. What's the risk in waiting? And what's your advice to someone who feels like it's too early or too complicated to begin?
That's such a great question, and one that I've addressed in videos in different ways.
Okay,
Uh,
good.
the best time to start is now. The best time to, if you have young people who are going off to college, they are adults. They may not need a full blown comprehensive estate plan, but they do, in my opinion, need an advance directive. They do need a power of attorney, because here's the truth. When they're off at college and they get sick or something happens to them, or maybe they need someone who's legally authorized to step in and maybe, handle some transactions for them while they're ill, you're going to need those documents, right? So they're adults. You as parents, if you are footing the bill for them at college, you are not entitled to their medical records. You are not entitled to the school records. Those are private.
Oh,
Newsflash,
very
parents.
important information right there.
Right. So if they're, let's take the example of them being sick at college. If they have and seriously ill, if we're involving an advance directive, if you are not named, as that agent or maybe successor agent, the advance directive, you're not authorized. You don't have any kind of like HIPAA waiver that gives the medical professions permission to share your medical record with your parents. You're an adult, 18-year-old, right? Yeah, but I'm paying $70,000 a year, and doesn't matter.
Nope. Nope.
Doesn't matter. Newsflash, right? So there's that. And the power of attorney, in case you can make, and there are limited powers of attorney, and we can go into that in another episode, or general powers of attorney that one can grant, limited for a specific purpose, right? But they need to, at a minimum, have those documents in place if they are studying, out of state, just away. They're adults. Things can happen. So as early as like 18, 19, the college years, they need to have one then. When you are starting a family, you have the birth of a new child, right? Well, let me go back for a second. Even before then, once you get married, there needs to be something on paper that says that this person has the legal right to do X, Y, and Z, right? As opposed to just
Mhm.
assuming because it's what you heard on TikTok or it's what you heard on some other social media platform, right? You need to have something in writing. Um, and it really gives the other party involved, comfort in knowing that they are executing your wishes in the way that you want. And they're not walking around with this cloud of guilt of, well, maybe, did she want this? Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I acted too soon. And there's all that uncertainty. That's what estate planning does. It removes that level of uncertainty. We talked about, starting a family. When you have a child, certainly that marriage and the birth of a child are one of those key moments
Yes.
that should cause you to create a plan, or if you have one, to look at it and say, well, maybe there are things that need to change. If you've introduced a child into the world, how are you providing for that child in your estate plan, right?
Yes.
As grow older, child moves away. Now the needs that the child had as a minor are different than they
Mhm.
have with an adult child. Your estate plan needs to change to reflect that, right? Or if you have more than one child, the estate plan has got to change and evolve to reflect that.
Yeah.
As
Just peel.
you and your partner, right, and as you as your partner get older, maybe one or both of you have health challenges, serious health challenges, different considerations. The kids are now grown, hopefully self-sufficient. Now it's, how are we taking care of ourselves? How are we taking care of each other as we grow older? Do we want to travel? Keeping in mind, where are we going to put money away for that? Our home, what would happen to our home if one or both of us passed away suddenly? If we were on vacation together and we both died, what happens to that home? Is there going to be chaos and fighting about who gets the home, whether it gets sold? Maybe you didn't want it sold. Maybe you want it left in the family. But if that's not documented anywhere, see, those are the things that lead to chaos. So to a long-winded way of answering your question, as early as possible, get some sort of estate planning done. And it is normal for it to evolve as your life does.
And what I got from that was start.
Yeah.
Start is the priority right here. We're prioritizing getting started, but understand that it's not one and done. It is a lifelong journey. Legacy building is a consistently intentional journey. It's a process and as your life changes, you have to keep up with it. But that's okay. We don't have to think about that right now. Just get started. Take the first step. And that's enough for now, right? That's what we're just gonna step
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely.
And so as we wrap up, I have to ask you about this. And again, rest assured, listeners, that Elsa will be back. And when she's back, we're going to get into some of the intricate details of estate planning and the documents and everything that's involved. So you will have an understanding. And I say that now because of something you mentioned, TikTok, Instagram, social media. I constantly see these reels telling you about trust and what you need to do and property. You know what I'm talking about, Elsa, don't you? And when I see it, I have a certain reaction because it's the same way I feel when I see the reels on blanket financial advice, as if one size fits all, which it does not. So I would just love to hear your views. People are out here taking estate planning or financial advice from influencers. It brings me concern. So tell me your thoughts on that, and then allow them, just kind of help them to guide them as far as what to do with that. Because look, we're on social media; they're receiving this information. It sounds good. It sounds like they should be doing something. When they see things like that, what should be their approach?
You're correct in that we are, as the public, we are literally bombarded with videos, short reels, with people professing to give financial and or estate planning advice. One of the things that I would suggest is to look at that person's track record. For example, I have, and I've shared with you that I have a pretty robust YouTube channel. Do they have a track record of providing educational content? You know,
In that lane
most
or in general? Like when you say
just in general, just look at, whether they're a financial professional, look at their track record, see, have they done speaking engagements? Have they published anything? Um,
yes.
any educational content to support what they're professing. And you kind of have to do your own, your research, your due diligence before
Yes.
deciding to take the advice of someone that you see online. And most professionals like you and I, we're on LinkedIn, the professional platform. um,
Mhm.
so take a look at LinkedIn, see what they're about, what their business is, and specifically whether they serve your jurisdiction. So I made it clear that I serve residents of Maryland and the District of Columbia. So when I put content out, there usually is a disclaimer either on the website or somewhere else that this is just educational information. It's not providing advice, and that you need to do your own due diligence and contact a professional that's licensed in your area. or that does, yeah, in your jurisdiction.
Yes,
You need to be very
exactly.
careful about that. And find someone that really, there's so many people out there, and I know I'm like not trying to go into your lane, Marcella, but there's so
You're
many people
right.
that profess to be financial
There's,
advisors.
there's so many.
And
Yeah,
quite
yeah, I know.
frankly, I know it's
I
it's
know.
it's an overly saturated market, but you really have to be careful, because at the end of the day, some people are just selling products and they're
Yes.
not interested in your growth. Some
Hmm.
people on the attorney side, they just view the experience as transactional. They're not
Yeah.
interested in empowerment and educating you.
Yes.
And respectfully, I think that people deserve more. And that
Absolutely.
this isn't a vending machine kind of, transaction. It's too personal. It's too important. You can't just pick the number 2 on the menu and get, an estate plan. It takes more than that.
Absolutely. It's a
So
personal touch. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So be mindful of that. See what other platforms they appear on.
Mhm,
Again, looking at any published works that
mhm,
they've done also might be helpful. I
mhm.
have a website that has a blog, and we regularly publish blog articles dealing with particular issues that relate to estate planning and or probate. So keep all of
Yeah.
that in mind. All of that factors in to that, what I call that know, like, and trust factor.
Yes.
Do you trust them? And trust your instincts. Do you trust the person? Do you get a good feeling about them? Do they come off as authentic? Do they come off as knowledgeable and just transparent about what they can do, what they can't do for
Mhm,
you? And
mhm.
start there. There's no magic bullet, but you do have a responsibility to do some due diligence and find out about the people that you are, potentially looking to build a professional relationship with.
That's great advice, Elsa. I completely agree, especially with just checking them out. Again, doing your due diligence because it is on you to make sure that you're making decisions. This is a decision. It's a financial decision you're making here. It's a long-term, it's a legacy decision. So it is very important that you do check them out, see if they have some type of the credentials, they have the information, the publishing, all that you mentioned, and they're not just trying to get clicks with
Right.
popular and trendy information, which the estate planning and trust is very trendy right now. And that's why we were going to bring you back and get some more clarity around that. Especially with all of this going on, we really need to make sure that people understand that, yeah, this is custom. This is custom for you, and it is not one size fits all. I have this analogy that I like to use. I tell individuals if you go to a doctor's office and for a checkup, and they just look at you and they write you a prescription. They don't touch you, no blood, urine, nothing. They just like look you up and down and write you a prescription. How will you respond? For me, I'm walking out that door and ripping. I'm not taking a prescription for someone who has not done the work to check me out. And that's what you're doing every time you just listen to someone on the internet. You are just grabbing a prescription and assuming that it works for you. You need to speak to someone who takes the time. And like you said earlier, Elsa, check everything out. We need all the details. The details, like the version, the blood, the urine, that's our version of all the data that we collect to make sure that we are going to do what needs to be done to sustain the health of your legacy.
And
So that's what you're
if I can
check.
add one last thing before I
Mhm.
forget, is to, although it is a factor, don't be guided solely by cost, by the level of
Oh, good
investment,
point. Good point.
right? Just look at the value that you're getting and let that be your guide. And sometimes, the better professional, the one that you're going to have the higher level of experience with, is not going to be the bargain deal. And just be prepared for that. That, as our parents have taught us, you get what you pay for.
That's what it is. You get what you pay for. And these aren't areas that you want to take chances with. There's always a saying I have, but there's one where we say, I know where you can get surgery real cheap. Like, do you want, like, if someone said, or you can get some surgery real cheap. That's not what we're thinking about, is it? We're not thinking
Not
about
at all.
at all. There are some things
Two for one brain surgeries. Like,
to remember that
yeah,
when you're talking about an estate planner. This is something you don't play with. This is something you want to take seriously and understand, more importantly, understand the value of what you're getting. And I think people miss that. And as first gens, because you didn't grow up with the understanding of the value, you did not see that, there was no blueprint. You may be the very first person in your family to ever go through an estate planning process, that you may not quite understand why it costs this much, or so forth and so on. So it is very important for someone to explain to you the value of this. And we've already talked about some of the consequences. So that alone illustrates the value of avoidance. And I am one that I truly believe in the value of avoiding certain things in your life. So I just wanted to add that as well to that, because that was such a great point. I'm glad you brought that up before we go. So let's wrap up here. You brought so much value to this conversation, and I thank you, Elsa. I want to make sure that everyone here, especially if you're in the Maryland and DC area, has access to you, knows what you're doing, knows what's going on with you. So please, Elsa, let everyone know how they can reach out to you, and what you have for them.
absolutely. Well, first of all, your audience can find out about our firm, the law offices of Elsa W. Smith, by going to elsawsmithlaw.com. You can also contact our office by calling 410-995-7719, 410-995-7719, to schedule your initial complimentary 15-minute assessment call. You can also follow us on social media. As we've talked about earlier in this episode, I have a robust YouTube channel at Elsa W. Smith Law. And really, you can use at Elsa W. Smith Law to find me everywhere on social media, on LinkedIn, YouTube. I'd also appreciate you viewing and subscribing to the podcast, which is available on Apple and Spotify. It's the Wills, Women, and Wealth podcast with attorney Elsa W. Smith. If you like the episode, consider liking and subscribing. And I do have one offer for your viewers and your listeners. So if you contact the office within 14 days of when this episode airs and you schedule a full consultation, we will credit $100 towards a protection plan that you choose. So you've got to go through the assessment, go through the consultation, and once we recommend a plan and you choose it, we will credit you $100. All you need to do is, when you first contact the office, mention that you learned about the offer on the LEGACY Pregame podcast.
That's amazing. Thank you, Elsa, for offering that to our listeners. Look, y'all, take advantage of that. The information will be in the show notes, so you should be seeing it. The link is there. Click on it, take advantage of it, give her a call, whatever your choices of communication. But that is a wonderful opportunity, and I thank you for presenting it to our audience. Before we go, I want to end with something that I present to all of our guests. And this is your opportunity to make your legacy statement right here for everyone to hear, because we're all about legacy here. So the statement goes as, you'll state your name. This is Elsa Smith, and this is the legacy that I'm living and leaving in the world. So share with us, what is your legacy?
This is Elsa W. Smith. The legacy I'm living and leaving in the world is to empower women through estate planning and to be a catalyst for changing the generational wealth narrative in our community.
So powerful. Thank you, Elsa. Thank you so much for this enriching conversation, for just allowing us to go deep in the areas of estate planning that we don't often hear about. And I know that the listeners will find so much value in it.
Thank you so much. It's really been a joy and a pleasure and an honor to be on your platform. So thank you again for the invitation.
Ah, you're welcome. And we will see you again.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, Legacy Builders, thank you for joining us for another incredible episode of the Legacy Pregame Podcast with attorney Elsa W. Smith. Until next time, live well, build wisely, and prepare with purpose.